Most UFO sightings are brief. It's a light in the sky, a shape seen for a few seconds, and then they're gone. Between 1989 and 1990, something very different happened over the country of Belgium. Thousands of people reported seeing the same object, and it wasn't just civilians, it was also police officers, radar operators, and even the military. And when fighter jets were sent to intercept it, they couldn't explain what they were tracking. Welcome back to A Study of the Strange. My name is Evan Transu. I'm a former atheist turned Christian, and the way I found my faith is very unconventional. I did not believe in a dang thing at one point in my life, no conspiracies, no form of spirituality, and definitely did not believe in UFOs or odd beings. So before this channel flies completely off the deep end, I'm doing this intro series where I'm walking you guys through some of the most strange and well-documented cases that I've ever come across with only one goal in mind. It is not to convert you to faith, so don't freak out yet if that's not your thing. It's actually to create a series where even the biggest skeptic, so someone who is much like me in the past, can at least see that there are significantly strange and meaningful things happening in our world. I'm personally of the belief that we are rapidly moving towards some more significant form of disclosure, and I feel called to get this information out there as quick as possible so that more people can be involved in it. If you'd like to start from the beginning of our series, you can check out the playlist that this exact video is a part of, the Skeptic to Believer playlist, which can be found on our channel. Otherwise, please enjoy what is easily one of the most credible cases of all times, the 1989 Belgium UFO Wave. It all began in November of 1989 near the town of Eupen, Belgium. Two police officers reported a strange object moving slowly across the sky. They described a large triangular craft with bright white lights at each corner and a red light in the center, very similar to what we talked about in our first video of the series. And it wasn't moving like a plane, it wasn't making any sound, again another similarity, and it wasn't that far away. So over the following weeks, more reports came in from an entirely different part of the country and different parts of the population. No matter where the reports were coming from, they all had this similar description of this triangular craft with the three white lights and the red light. This is where the case begins to separate itself from typical sightings. Most UFO reports are isolated, it's one person in one moment and there's no follow-up and you just have to believe the person at their word. But in Belgium, this kept happening, and by early 1990, there were hundreds and eventually thousands of reports. This lasted over 5 months that the same reports were coming in. And as I said, they weren't random. This object was consistently described as a large, triangular, and silent craft that was moving slowly at low altitude. And with the exception of the low altitude part, this is something that is still seen today. Some of these craft or very similar ones have come out in the UFO files released by the US government. So this is something that is not new. It's one of the biggest points I want to get across in this series. Some witnesses did report it hovering in place, while others said it moved with precise and controlled motion, but the overall shape and form of it stayed the same. On March 30th, 1990, so again, several months after the original report started happening, the whole situation escalated. The Belgian Air Force detected unidentified targets on radar, and that alone is unusual, because now the phenomenon wasn't just being seen, it was also being tracked. So the Belgian military scrambled 2 F-16 fighter jets. The pilots attempted to lock onto the targets, and for brief moments, they actually succeeded. What happened next is one of the strongest pieces of evidence in the entire case. So radar locks showed objects performing maneuvers that don't match conventional aircraft or anything that we have in today's world. There was rapid acceleration, sudden altitude drops, and speeds that changed almost instantly. At one point, a target on radar reportedly dropped from around 10,000 feet in the air to just a few hundred feet in seconds. And if you're not familiar with some of the things that the US government has released, that can sound preposterous, but the US government's own files have reported that they've seen craft that went from 50,000 feet to sea level and then under the sea as well, again, in a matter of seconds. So in fact, 10,000 feet to a few hundred feet above sea level would be not nearly as impressive as what's already been released by the US government today. After that, the signal disappeared and then it returned. One image became closely associated with the case, and I think it is worth mentioning. It is by a person that had a photograph whose name I cannot pronounce well at all. I really tried with these Belgian names. It is not easy whatsoever. And it appeared to show the triangular craft pretty clearly, but years later, the photographer themselves admitted it was a hoax. And I normally don't put a whole lot of weight into that because there has been times when US government officials or military personnel have come out and reported UFOs and then backtracked. But in this case, it probably was a hoax. The photographer said it was a small model with lights. And on the surface, that would seem damaging, but it doesn't explain the rest of the case that lasted for 5 months. And that's obviously because the sightings and the reports and the radar data all exist independently of that image. It seems like someone was more capitalizing on an event that really was happening as opposed to making up the entire event with that. That photographer with the fake photo came out long after this started. So the case was investigated by both civilian researchers and the military. One of the most notable voices was, again, work with me on this one, Wilfred de Brouwer. That's definitely not how you pronounce it. I'm sorry, Wilfred. And he was a general in the Belgian Air Force. He publicly stated that the phenomenon was real and remained unexplained. As far as he was concerned, no evidence pointed towards conventional aircraft and no clear explanation was ever given. The reason that this case stands out to me as one of the more convincing ones is because we don't just have a single type of evidence. It's not just one witness. It's not just a photo or a brief encounter. This is a case that lasted, again, 4 months with thousands of witnesses. You kind of come to wonder how many people could all get in on one hoax. It has to be something. Another important thing to note is that, of course, we had trained observers in this, including police, and critically, the military radar confirmation. That's a huge one for me. So these elements are rarely going to exist together in these cases. And when they do, I don't always think that they get released, right? That's why we have these UFO files coming out now in the United States government. This is what makes the Belgian UFO wave one of the most compelling cases on record, in my opinion. So again, we're left with the same questions as always. What was this? Was it experimental military technology that somehow we've had for decades? And then if that's the case, think about how big this has gotten, because you would assume that only the most well-funded militaries at that time would ever be able to pull something like this off. So that would have been clearly the United States military at the time. So you're telling me that not only were they able to build these things, hide them, but they were also able to fly them over other countries without ever getting caught. I'd like to believe that, because I actually think that would be the much more psychologically comforting version of this. I don't see that being the case. And with the Belgian case specifically, there's no single explanation that accounts for all of the data. And decades later, we sit here still wondering, the case remains unresolved and we don't have any more answers. So for me, as a former skeptic and someone who truly tries to be objective with this stuff, if you look at UFO cases individually, most of them can be dismissed. I'm not even saying that makes them fake or not real. I'm just saying, logically speaking, most of them can be dismissed. And so you have to take that approach when we're starting out trying to figure this stuff out. But every so often, one of these cases stands out in a significant way, very similar to the Phoenix Lights case that we watched in, or we covered in the first video on this channel and in this playlist. And that's why I'm putting these in the intro series, because when you get to see them all together, that's when your mind really gets to start going. So maybe you're like, Ev, this is cool. I like all this. I've seen this on the History Channel before. I'm not fully there with you yet. Let's go back a little farther in time. Our next case in this series is going to be all the way back in 1953. And this is one that is slightly more dramatic than just a sighting. It does involve radar. It is a case over Lake Superior where the military craft that was sent out to intercept it disappeared and has never been recovered or found. And obviously, this is 70 years ago. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Make sure to subscribe, please, if you like this kind of stuff and support what we're doing here. Also, there is a link in the description where you can get on our email list. At the time of recording this, we don't send out any emails. But the reason that I'm having that available right now is because I've seen some of these channels do extremely well, and then I've seen other channels that cover these topics completely disappear. I've said last time, it's above my pay grade to know what makes the difference as to why one gets to blow up and one does not get to share this information. But either way, if I have your email, then I have the ability to send you something if and when I have to move to another platform. Thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next time.
For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.